Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 17 of the Cynical Challenge podcast. My name is Greyson and JP. Joining you from Edmonton, Alberta, we have Jeff Paulus in beautiful St. Albert. JP, getting the kids' season underway. You guys must be excited now that games are finally taking place with Scottish.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, we got to watch U06 PDP play against Sherwood Park PDP yesterday. Very good. Sherwood Park went 2-0. Actually, fair play to Sherwood Park. They've done a good job. So Kurt Bosch, well done. But of course, Kurt Bosch, well done. Top coach. So yeah, it's brilliant. You know, we've got our semi-pro teams kicking off as well on Saturday, men and women versus Foothills. So yeah, it's exciting. It is great to see kids playing football again.
Isn't it great? You drive by, like driving home from work, kids are playing in the parks, kids are, having little mini games. It's so refreshing to see. And of course, we're here to talk about the Canadian Premier League because it starts on Saturday, the 26th with a doubleheader, and then two more matches on Sunday as things kick off from the Winnipeg bubble. JP, the format was announced today. We already knew that each team was going to play 8 matches in Winnipeg, but now we've learned the rest of the 20 matches will be basically against your group. So that's the Western teams and the Eastern teams. And then there's 4 matches that cross over with the East. So all told, you'll get 3 matches against the teams from the other half of the country, 2 in Winnipeg and 1 more throughout the regular season. And then you'll get 5 against 2 teams in your group. And then 1 team in your group you'll play 6 times. So my guess would be you would play FC Edmonton Cavalry 6 times, York Forge 6 times, and then I guess by default you'd get Pacific Valor 6 times and Ottawa Halifax 6 times. Do you like that they're kind of staying regional to reduce travel and maybe minimize some of the stress on the players?
I think that piece is important early. Get some of those kind of, I think that is an important piece. It's been so long since these players have played, and then really go past the Island Games, and you think, it's almost 2 years, and some of these players have played 9 games. If you're on FC Edmonton, you played 7. So, yeah. So no, I like that. It's a difficulty here, and we've talked about it before in different aspects as well, Grayson. But when you're signing international players, for example, you're bringing them in here, and number one, they're not used to training on turf every single day and then playing on turf. So there's wear and tear there. Forget about the culture. You have all the stuff with culture and food and things like this. But the other piece that many international players are not used to is the amount of travel we have to do and the length of travel and the amount of time spent in airports and on airplanes. And some fail not because of talent. They fail because they're unable to make that transition into this type of environment. So probably smart.
Yeah, it's wild when you think about, Edmonton and Cavalry fans that get excited when they play each other because it's only a 2.5, 3-hour trip. Whereas like if you're in England or something, like 3 hours might be the very farthest you travel in your league one way for a game. So
yeah,
it's definitely a challenge. And
well, listen, there's another reason why Cavalry fans are happy to play Edmonton many times.
Seems to be 3 points every time. Although I don't know, if you play 6 times, you think this year maybe they'll nick one off. We'll have to see. But
you would think.
Well, let's talk playoff format too. They announced that as well today. And personally, I'm not a big fan of a straight up 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, and then the 2 winners play all single legs. So it's going to be a very quick playoff. It won't take more than 2 weekends. Maybe just your thoughts on that.
Hate it.
Yeah.
Can't stand it. Yeah, I can't stand it. It's so often the criticism, and then the diehards, of course, and that watch football overseas and whatnot, they're used to a league champion being the champion. And they're not used to a playoff. And that's great. But in North American culture, we like a playoff. So you find the balance between the two. When you go 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3, you might as well be the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Montreal Canadiens. First place has got you nothing. You're knocked out. And so you're not playing a season for anything. And in a 28-game season, as you start getting spread, and we've seen in this league when we've had the 1 full season that the top teams create a fairly large gap, a sizable gap. And that could happen again with some of the talent coming in with some of the usual contenders. There's the chance here you could see team number 1 and 2 walk away with it early, create this point balance. Well, if they know that if they have to play a game, and first place doesn't mean anything, why wouldn't they just rest their players down the stretch? Well, let teams 3 and 4 scrap and everything to get into it. So you take away some of that competitiveness near the end of the season for teams. Maybe they've earned the right to do that. Maybe that's the right to get out of the gate fast. I don't know, but I don't like in our sport when you play a 28-game season and get 0 reward for winning that, for being consistent, for being the top team day in and day out. for the manager consistently putting out a top lineup. And what for? To play a one game where, a bad decision by a referee, a slip, a little mistake, and your team all of a sudden gets knocked out after a great, 28 game run.
It's I'm not a fan either. There's two formats I would have loved to see. I would like them to either adopt the page playoff system they have in curling, where one plays two, the winner goes to the final, and they would host. The loser gets a chance to play the winner of 3-4, which 3 would host. And then the loser of 1v2 would host the winner of 3v4. And then, the winner of that would go on to the final. It gives your second place team or your first place team another life should they lose, which they've earned over the course of regular season. The other format I'd like to see is a ladder style where 3 hosts 4, and the winner of that visits 2. The winner of that visits 1. It gives you incentive to finish higher and higher up the table. And if you finish 4th, you've got to go on the road and win 3. Whereas if you finish 1st, you just got to win 1. So, I think either of those would work, but something to look at going forward, I suppose.
I love that. No, I love the page playoff. And I think a lot of Canadians, because a lot of us love curling, would probably get that. Yeah.
Although there's a lot of soccer fans who hate curling, because remember when you'd watch on TSN, especially at the start of the season, like the Brier would run long and like you'd miss the first 10 minutes of the Whitecaps match, and Twitter would go nuts over it. But
is that a loss? So is that a loss right now?
Maybe not this
missing 10 minutes of the Whitecaps.
Yeah.
But
yikes.
Yeah, I don't know. Tim Hortons is big into curling, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the Tim Hortons Brier. So
yeah, maybe we've adopted that stance too. Tim Hortons also doesn't like unions. I don't know. Maybe bringing those together. Maybe that's why they're not doing a page.
Maybe.
They don't. Anyhow.
Why don't we talk about each of the teams individually? What we're going to do is go coast to coast. We'll mention something we like about the team. We'll mention maybe a question, their biggest one going into the season, or maybe something we don't like about how they're built. We'll give an X factor, player or a group that you think is going to make the biggest difference or make the team tick. And then we're going to do a ranking. We're not going to do predictions because I don't think it's fair to try to predict only seeing some of these teams for 7 or 11 matches over the course of 2 years. So just kind of our preseason rankings where you have them on paper going in, because a lot of these teams, there's a lot of questions, a lot of unknowns. So why don't we start out on the East Coast with the HFX Wanderers. JP, give us your rundown. What do you like? What don't you like? Your X factor and where you have them going in.
Yeah, for me, this is just, like the Apocalypse Now Redux. It's a remake of the same team. And, but the trick for them is, can they remake in a different image the same team? Or will they be a counterattacking team that caught everybody off guard? Really worked well when you have, I think, a majority of the players and teams unfit on the island. So that made their tactic, I think, very effective because teams couldn't run with them for 90 minutes. And so that counterattack and that high tempo stuff when they got the ball, I think, caused a lot of teams some difficulty in dealing with it. Certainly, I can speak on experience. That was the only game that I ever felt we would never have a chance. That was the one game where I walked out of that like, my goodness, man, we just got it handed to us. No one else in that event, I can say, did that, left me with that feeling. Can they do it again? Can they really refine and build on that? X factor player, I would just say, I don't have one with the team coming in. I don't have, pick one of their forwards. I guess Garcia could be the X factor. I don't see an X factor new signing. But what I see is the key that they kept that core together. Sissoko will be interesting. Can they replace him? Maybe more a question than an X factor for me.
Right. Where do you have them ranked if you had a 1 to 8?
Oh,
I know.
1 to 8 right now. That Halifax team, I'm going to give them 4th.
Okay. You know what? It's funny because our notes that I have on my phone and that you have written down are pretty much the same for this team. What I like about them, they're bringing back 9 of the 11 starters from last year's final. That continuity is big. And the players they lost, I know they lost Chris Insaw, but they brought in Maury Donor. And again, Sissoko is going to be a tough one to replace, but they did bring in Jeremy Gagnon-Laparé. And actually, for me, I have him as my X factor. If you're going to be a counterattacking team and he's going to be your holding mid, you need someone who can turn the ball around quickly up the field, spread it out, and get that counter starting to roll. So for me, he's going to be big for this team. And again, my question for them is the same as yours. everybody knows what they did so well last year to give them success. But now that they know that, how are you going to approach it if you're Stephen Hart and Halifax? How do you know that they're going to anticipate that you're going to sit and counter? How do you deal with that? How do you come up with something new, a different game plan? And I also have them fourth. So for me, they're kind of middle of the pack. They'll be fighting, I think, for one of those last couple of playoff spots. So should be good. But again, it'll be really interesting when they get back home because that place is going to be rocking because they haven't gone out and had a proper kitchen party for a long time. And so I think the fans are going to make a big difference for all markets, but I think particularly in Halifax. So what do you think about Atletico Ottawa as we move on now to the capital, Mista's side? Expansion team, some questions I would imagine. We'll start with you, JP. I guess you can go first. Give us your impressions of Atletico Ottawa.
Yeah, this could be an exciting team, I think. I like their additions. You know, you look throughout there, the new signings and even the Canadians they brought in, and you see a lot of goals in the last couple of years when we were playing games in the world. But you see 5, 6, 7, 8, goals per season amongst these players. And so you've got players that are comfortable around goal. So that would maybe fix that end of it for them. Although with Acuna last year, they could score a little bit. It was their defending that caused them a problem. So here you look at a lineup. Neufeld's back. Blalakiv is an attacking player. I still think teams can maybe exploit some of his attack. He does like to get forward. We know how he wants to play. So there are some opportunities probably to utilize that against them a little bit. Trubecki, probably could be a really good signing. For not the X factor for me though of the signings. He's not the one, but I think he's a very good signing. Chris Manella coming in there. Could he kind of solidified a midfield because you've got him and Ben McKendry's got some bite, and now you've got Manella there also has he's got a physical nature to his game, strong boy, so that could show up at midfield for them. Brandon John and of course the Spanish player they brought in for the right fullback position. There's a question there, again because you have to adapt to what it's going to be here. Dylan Pallianet, not an X factor player for me on this roster, but that's only because they signed Soto.
Right.
Otherwise, I might give Dylan Pallianet a shout, and I know, and I feel bad for Dylan because I know he feels he didn't get a fair shake with us. When I was there, we had him and Connor. They were both number ones. I still believe it. I believed it then. He didn't get the amount of opportunity with FC Edmonton to show himself. I won't get into any rationale for that or anything like that. What I can tell you is he's a fantastic keeper. He's a great shot stopper. His distribution is going to give this team a different element playing out of the back. He might be the best ball playing keeper playing in the league this year. I'm hoping he starts. I'm assuming he's going to start. I wish him the best of luck, but he's going to give them some confidence playing out. The X factor player is Soto. I mean, U20 Spanish national team player, 5 caps. Atletico Madrid U20 player. They see something in him. If they've lent him out at this point, they've not released him. They see something because they lent him. They don't want to let him go yet. Now they've brought him here, and this is where that partnership now starts to. It's going to start to pay dividends. And this is was always a thought in my head as a manager of FC Edmonton. Is my goodness. I mean, this team is going to start to utilize that relationship and bring in these players, even if they brought them in for half a month, for half a season, and they go back to Europe at the end of July when their season start up. Well, that gives them a big boost because it's going to be a talented player. You have to imagine. Right. That's an X factor player for me. I like this squad, and I'm struggling honestly. I've got my top 4 for me was straightforward. How I pick 5 to 8 is difficult because where I place FC Edmonton is always going to be looked at sour grapes. It's not sour grapes,
right.
At all with FC Edmonton. I'm going to support them. I'm supporting them. Well, wrong side. Just looking in the TV. I'm supporting them today. I'm supporting them on our CPL kind of show. So this one's hard, but I'm excited by what they've changed. So at the expense of my friends at FC Edmonton, I'm going to have to put them number 6.
Ottawa 6?
On my depth chart. I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. What I like about Atletico Ottawa is I like that partnership. Like you said, Soto, They have Rafael Nunez, a 19-year-old who's coming in on loan from Madrid. Miguel Acosta, another Madrid academy product. Like that partnership is going to just infuse something completely different into this league that we haven't seen. And I know, you can go into the money thing, you can get into all that, but the point is it's going to give talented players an opportunity to play here, and it should only better the league in the long run. My question for them, and you touched on it too, Acuna, just in terms of players who are most valuable to their team, he was the far and away the MVP in the league last year in terms of to a single team, the most valuable, which I guess in theory should be the most valuable player. But my X factor is actually Zach Verhoeven coming in. You know what? We've seen glimpses of what he can do. Now he's going to get a chance to start regularly. He has to show that he is, one of the top attacking options in this league, and he's going to get, I think, every opportunity to do so. I have Ottawa at 8, just because I have so many questions and I haven't seen them, and I don't really know where else to place them. So I just have them at 8. It doesn't necessarily mean I think they're going to finish there, because I think when they split back into the groups where it's East versus West, I think they'll be able to nick some points off York and nick some points off Halifax. So it'll be interesting. But right now I have them as number 8. So
here's a question. Do you think that because it's our rankings coming into the book, is it a bubble? Could you ever, anyhow, I guess. They're the only team that's played. I mean, they've been training 11. They've been training normal football for a long time in Spain. They've played games in Spain. They had decent results by the looks of it. I didn't go too in depth on who they played there, but they're coming in as the one team that you would say is prepared. So can they get out of the gate early? Can they pick up? I mean, they've got 8 games here. What if they walk away with 6 out of 8? Just simply because they're more prepared than anybody. Their players are closer to game fitness. They'll manage injury better than the other clubs that haven't trained for a lot, which means they can probably get deeper into the season without having to mix and match lineups a lot, just because I think the players will be better prepared to handle, what's about to happen here in Winnipeg. So that's why I've given them a kind of a higher ranking. Okay. And this will be my justification for why, I'm going to look like a Sarah Greyson and I talk about my home club.
No, that's a fair shout. I hadn't really considered that. I know they came back and they had to wait around for a couple weeks too. So maybe that hurt a little bit, but like you said, they're the only ones who really got any preseason matches in. So it's an interesting factor. Why don't we go from Ottawa, who have a lot of questions, to a team that probably doesn't have many, which is Forge. 2-time defending champions. I'll go first on this one. I like their accountant because I don't know how they keep fitting these players under the salary cap. It's amazing. It's almost one of those things like you've seen in the NBA where they're like, hey, why don't you just take a little bit less and come be on our team and we'll just form a super team. It almost feels something like that. There's not a lot of holes to kind of poke and prod in this team in terms of like a question or a dislike. So I guess my biggest one is, which Tristan Henry are we going to get for the majority of the season? Is it going to be the first half of 2019 or the Arakai one? Or do we get the one that, is a Golden Glove candidate? X factor for me, Tristan Borges. He went over on loan to Belgium, did his thing. And if he's as good as he thinks he is, or as good as everybody thinks that he should be, then he should just come back and dominate and then take the next step once again and make it permanent this time. And as 2-time defending champions, I have no choice but to put them at number 1 until proven otherwise. So for me, they're the favorites going in. What are your thoughts?
I have them as number 1 going in. I mean, they're the champs. No one else has won in this league. So until someone proves that they can beat that team, they have to be number 1. And, it's interesting, the accounting piece, and I think their advantages. So they're the one club that walks out of here when they recruit and they can say CONCACAF. So if you want to get away, if you want to have some opportunities, we're going to expose you to a CONCACAF. No one else can do that. So go to them for $10,000 more than here and enjoy playing in Canada for 28 games and then enjoy your off season. We'll be in CONCACAF. And they have that. And there's something to that. And the other thing is they're going to be well known. They made a deep run. They played some good teams. They had good results against good teams, CONCACAF teams. And that's going to hold some water for them. People know who Forge is in the CONCACAF region now. So when they make a phone call to a player, they're probably, oh yeah, you know what? They're getting a lot of attention. Maybe I'll try that, this season. So
Well, look at the
Anyhow,
guy they signed, right? Omar Brown recently,
that's
Panamanian,
it.
knows CONCACAF.
Yeah, yeah, going to be effective for them. You know, I had some concerns previously. I thought, who's going to score their goals? Okay, they've solved it for me. I mean, there's no longer a question mark who's going to score goals for them. They score by committee anyhow. They don't really have one player you have to worry about. I mean, just as a team, they just plod along. But also, they're not really an overly offensive team anyhow. They don't need to win games like that. They're very comfortable winning 1-0. Yeah, so they sorted it. You know, the X factor player for me, there's a few, but I guess Jakovic. I'm going to go with, you know, when I think of Brown could be one, Borges could be one, but I'm going to go with him because the difference in 2019 in end of season forge, beginning season forge was David Edgar and what he brought to that team. If they get the replacement here, if he can do the same job that David Edgar did, then for me, they're a championship team again. There's one team that will compete with them that I see right now, just one, but they are in the final. If he's able to accomplish that, when you look at the other pieces that they've lost some pieces. They've also lost some pieces that I'm not going to say names, but people have rated way higher than I rate, and they've replaced them with better pieces, I think. So, yeah, they're in a good position.
It's definitely
number one.
Yeah, it's definitely a team that's built, not necessarily. Well, I mean, obviously for the Canadian Premier League, but it is a team with eyes more on CONCACAF at this point as well. They want to make a big run, and they feel like they should be in Champions League, and they missed their opportunity twice last year. So they'll be looking to rectify that. So why don't we move a little bit away from them and go to York? So not very far trip. York United, big overhaul. What do you make of Jimmy Brennan's side?
He's got a big job. He's got some big pieces to replace. He's got a roster that, you know, I'm sure he's had some say in the building of it, but I know they have more of a committee and looking at players now, and they're really into analytics. So I believe in that, you know, because I believe in analytics, and I believe in the people that the organization has brought in to assist with that. So great. Maybe they're going to see things that you know, if we're just watching a game or a film that we're looking at a player, oh, they did this well or that well. They're doing deep dives into numbers, and they're also looking at bringing in a very young roster. This could work out well for them. Maybe Pacific, but my fear is that it is Pacific, and it's Pacific in 2019, not Pacific in 2020, as these new players all try to come together and make it work. Some interesting ones, you know, Julian Albrecht, I guess. I believe he's still with the team, and I think he's in, and everything is good there. So some decent experience back home for him. He could be maybe the one key for me when I look at the roster. Can Petrasso continue what he's done just recently overseas? If he brings out form here, he'll be a real threat because he's a very, very good player that's only had injuries slow him down in this league so far. If he can stay healthy and play the way he's playing, X factor player. How about Noah Verhoeven? You know, how does he do on this roster? Do they give him freedom to play? And he's a player that I think needs to almost have a bit of a free role, almost when I look at him. And if he gets that here, you know, can he be an impact? Can he dribble and get the ball on the ground and go at people, which I think he's very good at doing? But they, again, for me, their holes are so big. It's such a big, massive change. And then again, the ranking here, so friends of mine can't get mad at me for saying it, is coming into the event. Because their team is so new and so young, and the fact that they only started training about 2 weeks prior to their first game, I've got to put them at the moment number 8.
There you go. I have a little bit of different thought. I actually have them in number 5. But again, you mentioned it earlier. That 5 to 8, I think, is just so interchangeable. And again, we're kind of just going off paper, and it's not really a great way to judge. But I like their goalkeeping and back line, actually. I like the combination of Ingham and Giantsopoulos. Nico's really going to push, I think, Nate, for the starters' gloves. And I think you can't go wrong with either one of them between the sticks. Abzi, Zator, Roger Thompson, and Chris Ensah across the back line, I think is quite solid. Because I know it's going to be a team that really wants to get forward, and those guys are really going to be put to the test. So I think by having a decent back line and a couple decent keepers, it's going to give them a chance. The question that I have is, you mentioned it, it's a young team. 9 players are eligible for the U21 minutes, so they won't have any problem reaching that threshold. But how does that youth all come together? How does it mesh? How does it work?
Right.
Yeah, like you said, Jimmy's got a tough one there. And Michael Petrasso is my X factor. 10 goals in 31 matches for Barnet. He was their player of the year. That's got to do you a world of confidence. Now he has to come back and he's got to show, just like Tristan Borges does, that he is better than this league, that he is good enough in this league to give himself a move elsewhere. That's what he should be looking for. And again, I had them at number 5. So there you go.
Yeah.
Those are the Eastern core teams. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I will say it's great shout on their back line. I'm mentioning that it's a good back line in this league. That's a very, very good back line. Especially I like Absy going back in because I think he's a real threat coming from deeper, easier to defend for me when he starts up in a high position. So I like him come from that deep spot. Yeah, Zator and Thompson, you can't go wrong with those two. And I think Ensa is a very, very good player. And yeah, it's a great shout. I mean, 8 for me really has a lot to do with their preparation.
Right.
How do you prepare a team in 2 weeks to play 3 games in a week?
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it.
You definitely went more with the time prepared. And obviously you would know that being a coach. And I just looked at rosters and paper. So we get 2 different views here. So that's good. Middle of the country now, Valor. I can go first on this one. I like that they have a bundle of experience. A lot of their players have played in all sorts of different leagues, all sorts of different environments around the world. And I think that's going to be good. But it also, for me, is a bit of a double-edged sword, because it brings up my question is, how do all of those different styles and personalities and attitudes, how do they all come together and mesh together and work together? So that'll be obviously Gailey's biggest challenge. Rob Gale, head coach for Valor. The X factor for me, just a lone player. It's Rodrigo Reyes, a center back on loan from Chivas. I mean, they got Andrew Jean-Baptiste, the Haitian back there. So if Reyes comes in as advertised, they're going to have 2 really, really good center backs that are going to be just a pain in the ass to play against. So for me, that's my X factor for them. I have them at 6. I'm just not sure there's enough there up front to put them any higher than that right now. JP, interested to take or hear your thoughts on Gailey's side.
Yeah, it was a tough one for me as well. Again, honestly, you know, please, Gailey and Alan and Jimmy, just know any one of you could have been 5 in my books. It's all, and apologies for not putting you higher, but that's on you guys, not me. So I do have them 5th. But goal scoring is my question for this team as well. I look at it, I think the back line is going to be outstanding. A great addition on loan. Love that. I know Gailey's been out there working hard. And again, I'll say it, you know, and because I don't think Gailey gets enough credit, but he works with a smaller budget than the other teams do when it comes to players. And I don't think he gets enough credit for finding some of the talent that he does, convincing him to go there. You know, how do they all mesh? You know, I think that if you're prepared to live in Winnipeg for 8 to 9 months out of the year, you're prepared to make it work on the field with whoever's on the field with you, so that they'll get resiliency. They're going to be resilient. And my X factor is a player that I'm a massive fan of. It's Kevin Elman. Mm-hmm. He's my X factor. Again, I know how good this kid can be. He was not fit for us in the Island Games. And look how he played a lot of minutes. He fought through them. It was my job to get players around him that would fit him. And if I had stayed on the team, if I had stayed with the club, I would have built the club around him. He would have been my focal player. And I would have got players that would have been able to work off of his abilities. I love this player. And I hope he has a great season there. So he's my X factor player because I think he can turn the game around on his own. I think he can control a tempo of a game. I think he can break down a back line. I think he can lose a midfield. I think he's more clever than a lot of the central midfielders we have in the league. So I'm looking for big things from him, that he's going to get a full training session. Hopefully he's got a full training, stint in with them. Yeah. I hope he's been in Winnipeg working out and not coming in last minute. Like we really put him under the gun here. You know, you were here, you know the conditions he came in under. So yeah, he's my X factor player. I love him. And I think that this is a player that can challenge. And we talk about Borges and Bustos, but I would talk about this player because for me, he's in that conversation with those two every day for me.
Quick question for you. no fans allowed. Does being at home do anything for Valor?
No, other than they probably train on that pitch every day.
Yeah.
But without fans there in that big old stadium, it's just gonna be a big old stadium.
Yeah.
And it takes away that, because they've got a very good fan base. It was always nice to go there because you're going to have people there watching the game. They're loyal to the team. That will keep growing every year. So it's unfortunate that they're hosting without fans. It would have been great, because honestly, it would have been, let's say I watched France go to Hungary and play in Hungary in front of all those fans. It just, even as a viewer, it was amazing. So it's unfortunate there's no fans here for this initial piece. So it takes away home. I mean, Rob Gale, he's had to say goodbye to his 2 daughters for 5 weeks while he sits in, how many weeks this is going to be while he's in the bubble. It's not going to be comfortable for them either. They're staying in hotels just like everybody else. So
there you go. Yeah, no, that's a good point too. They have to bubble up. They can't go home. It's not like they're sleeping in their own beds either. So, Cavalry, maybe the team that everybody sees as the one big challenger to forge his title hopes of a three-peat. What do you like about Tommy Wheeldon Jr.'s team?
Everything. Yeah, everything. They are. I put them number 2 only because they're not the defending champ, Forges. But I look at those 2 rosters and I'm thinking, for me, these 2 rosters have separated from the pack again. How deep is this team? It's scary. What a job Tommy's done. First of all, let's start with the manager. He has a way about him. I've always looked at him down the line whenever I managed to get it, whether it was before the CPL existed, I was coaching against him, friendlies into the CPL. But I've always looked down the line at Tommy, and I've always thought, one of the reasons why what I do now, believe that, as an assistant coach, I was very, very good as an assistant coach. I can get on the grass and run a session and do that things. But I miss that X factor that's Tommy. He has something, his intensity, his emotion and passion that he just wears it. He spreads that out of him. His team adopts that. I don't have that in my personality, and you can't fake it. And so I've always looked at him with a bit of envy in that regard, I have to say, because he just has it. He's the gaffer. You look at him, you see a manager there. His team feeds off that. So that number 1 starts it off for me with that roster. You look at the players he's brought in. Again, the only question mark is, and everyone talks about them losing Dominic Sator. Very good player. I like Dominic Sator. Great kid. But for me, their biggest loss is Jay Wheeldon. It's not Sator. I think Jay's harder to replace. If they've done that, if they can replace him, then this is a very good, very scary, a very dynamic, and a different looking Tommy squad that will still, I'm sure, have his intensity on the pitch. He'll get that. But X factor players, you bring in Mason, first of all, a player that's had a career in the championship. Well, we're not even close to that level yet as a league. How is he going to do here? Again, turf, travel, all these things he'll have to accommodate to. And if he does that, then they may have the league MVP in that player. I'm early in the running for me based on pedigree, but they get Escalante back. He's a new signing this year for them that works out to me. How good he is, and he's that he gives them their edge because he annoys everybody. And he's a player he's just ticking in for Edmonton fans, that everyone else hate him, but you want him on your team.
Yeah.
That's what I felt, but I would take him in a heartbeat. Drove me crazy when we played against him. He was public game number in my head. I couldn't stand him, but I would have signed him the next day to this club if he became available to me, because you want that player. And so they've got him back. They've got I'll tell you this, Richard Luca, I know he's special because I thought I had him signed, and then Tommy's stolen him up from under me, but so I like him as well. Dynamic. There won't be many a player with his skill set in this league. So if he buys into Tommy's system, what a player he's got. Joe DeChera, if York made the playoffs last year, Joe DeChera was my Island Games MVP.
Right.
But they didn't, so you wouldn't give it to him. But he, for me, was the most dominant player in there, and they've picked him up. You just look across the board. So if these young defenders that he's brought in do well, what a team. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I have is written down as what I like about Cavalry is just strength in every position and depth. Like you look at the midfield, and like you said, DiChiara is there, Nick Ledgerwood, but they got guys that can come off the bench too, Elliot Samuels. They're just loaded kind of everywhere. I think the one question that I had is the back line. There's a little bit of youth with Yao and Dan Klump. I know Mason Trafford's there. I know David Norman Jr. is there. He can play center back. He can also play more of a holding mid. It's just, I'm sure those players are really good. We haven't seen them in the CPL, but they're also kind of young. So like, how are they going to adjust? That's really, again, I'm just trying to like, pick straws here, trying to unravel things for this club. But I like them. I have them as second. Who do I have as my X factor? Let's scroll through my notes. I have Joe Mason Woodby, like you, but article on CanPL.ca says he's not in the bubble, so he's going to miss the first 8 matches. So that's going to be a bit of a factor. So I had Anthony Novak. If he's going to score goals, this is going to be the opportunity for him, because he's going to get all sorts of service in the box, I think, and this is going to be a chance for him to bag a bunch, especially with Mason not being involved particularly early on. So second place for XP Cavs.
Nah, same as me. And I mean, again, if you're any number 9 on this team, and you've got we already mentioned 2, and Richard Luca and getting Escalante back, but you got Sergio Camargo, and if he's healthy, I mean, many people thought he was the best number 10 in the league in 2019 when he was healthy. I mean, that's the talent level this team has. Jose Hernandez, he could be, we'll see what he's got this year. The Canadian lad they signed, Salamani from out of Australia, I believe, or New Zealand. He scores goals there.
Right.
What's he going to do here? Like, it's almost an embarrassment of riches. And honestly, you mentioned Forge's accountant. They must have signed his brother or his sister.
Both those teams have a lot of money elsewhere as well, so maybe there's something in there. But why don't we talk about for us, the local team, FC Edmonton. I can go first with this one. For me, I just am a big fan of back lines, but I really like this back four. Charlie Mabusi is an interesting addition as a fullback. I think he could be really good. Amir Didic and Mele Temguia have been here since 2019. You love them together. Tall, strong defenders, able to clear their lines, able to chip in offensively too. We haven't seen a ton of it yet, and we keep expecting more. Maybe with some service from the likes of Kyle Porter and that type of thing. Maybe this year will be the year where they chip in. And then of course, Genoa Sua, one of the best fullbacks in the league, on the other side of that back four. So I really like their back four. For me, the question is, will there be enough service in the midfield for Easton Ongaro, for a couple of their other signings up front, Avila, and for Warshawski? Are they going to be able to get the ball enough to those guys to, put the ball in the net? Because that's where all the issues lie with this team, is goal scoring. And so for me, the X factor is Shimit Shom. Coming back home after a stint with Montreal in MLS, he has to drive the offense forward. He has to spread the ball out wide so they can ping it back in, or he has to put those through balls in that Ongaro can run onto and finish. For me, he's the X factor. And overall, I have them as 7. I can't put them any higher until the offense is more consistent. So preseason, I have them as 7. What do you think?
Yeah, this is so tough for me. What a position.
I know.
Sour grapes. And
it doesn't give me any pleasure to put a team I work for that low preseason. But again, like, this is just a preseason rank. But anyways.
No, and that's it. And coming in, and also, I mean, okay, I'll start off and I'll just get it right off the beginning, get it over with. But I put them in 7th as well right now, coming into it. So I've done that. I agree with you on the back line. Fantastic. Amir Didic for me is still a top defender in this league. Now we keep him healthy. He gets out there and he leads this team and becomes a leader out there. Then I love what they have in that back line. Mele Temguia is probably still the most underappreciated central defender in this league, that I think is an upper tier defender in this league. What a pairing that is. Genoa Sua. Yeah, I agree. For me, again, I still think he's one of the best right backs in the league. I've thought it from day one. They've got options with him. Harris G is an interesting signing, because I also know he is a top right fullback, but he can play both sides, and he can also play higher up the pitch. Where they decide to play him, I don't know. And then I don't know much about, agree. I watched some highlights, and it's Charlie.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I watched some highlights on him. He's interesting, what they talk about, but don't know. Question mark there for me. Shimit Shom, great to bring him home. I love Shimit Shom. Everything about his game. He's simple. He's clean. He plays it. for me now, for him to have a real impact in this league here and be the player that we all know that or have the impact that we all believe he can have here, he needs to be the one making that decisive pass. He needs to be the one breaking the back line, doing something to get in behind defenders, more than just keeping us in possession now. Is he going to be the one that takes the reins in that central mid and is going to be, again, that dynamic playmaking center half? Because he's a big player here, meant to be a leader here. Well, will the game become very dynamic to match that? So that'll be the challenge with that position. Fraser Aird, Kyle Porter. Fraser actually, for all his experience, is not that old yet. And
right.
He can also be a right fullback, so he gives some flexibility. Does he go right fullback and we push up? You remember the Lance Lang experiment? And
right,
came here as a fullback, but then all of a sudden we decided to push him higher up the pitch, and he's 2 straight years and ASL top 11. Maybe Jeannot Osua, with less defensive responsibility, push up higher in the pitch, becomes that same attacking player for FC Edmonton there. So there's an option with Jeannot there because he can get at players. He's got pace. He's strong. He can ping a ball in. There's options because, again, you've got Paris Jean, you've got Fraser that can also be right backs and very, very good ones. And I'll tell you something, the T-boy who they just announced are signing today on Twitter, he is – I've had the luxury now to see all the right in the last 2 years to have seen every right fullback in this league, including FC Edmonton's currently. I can say fairly confidently, but I guess when you look at my coaching record, take it with a grain of salt when I say it fairly confidently. But he is honestly at his age the best 1v1 defending fullback I've seen. I've seen, and that is if you want to shut down a player in a game to go out there and really nullify the other team's left winger, this kid will do it. I'm telling you, it's so hard to beat him 1v1. So I'm really happy with this signing for them. I think the kid's got some real potential here. In a really position heavy, though, like they've got some numbers as right backs now. So that's interesting, too, because he's basically their 4th right back on this team. When you look at dominant positions, Fraser being able to play there, Paris G there, and now this kid. So interesting. My X Factor player is Warszewski. I'm hoping I pronounced that right. The big German striker. Everything I've heard about this player in camp is that he is a real handful, one to watch, real strong, ability to play back to goal. So he's one that's interesting. I won't say a whole lot more because I do get insider information from the club. So I won't. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up their formation. I don't want to do that. Avila is an interesting one for me because I don't know much about him, but a lone player, good level, and also Gorski. Right. I mean, again, USL Championship. Yeah, Hunter. USL Championship's good level. The CPL's not at that level yet. And I see a lot of comments and arguments and debates in the Twitter world. Well, CPL is as good as you. No, it's not. At the end of the day, USL Championship is a very, very good league with decent salary caps. They average 7,000 fans a game at almost all their teams. It's good football in that league, and getting players out of there with that good experience, like a Paris G and like a Hunter, I think that really adds to this club. It helps them. Do I project them to be 7th coming out of let's say the midway point and higher? No, they're going to be higher. I think this is a roster that can compete for a playoff spot, top 4. 7 is where I see them coming in. You see me kind of backpedaling now and tap dancing out of my comment, but it's true because you also have a new manager here who's changing the way they play. He's going to probably put a different system in play with him and his staff, with Alan. It's going to take them time to gel. And even though they've been training, a lot of the training's been individual training as well. So they've been getting fitness work in, but they've not had a ton of time to gel. They've yet to play a friendly. They've done inter squads, and it's not the same when you do an inter squad. And that's all they've done as well. Give Alan Kosh, he's a fantastic manager. Given time, I really think he's going to do some good things with this roster because he's got some good pieces. And I think he's answered some questions on lacking. Rael Tito is disappointing that he didn't come in. Great, but yeah.
No, I think we had both the same thinking. I don't think they finished 7. They probably finish a little bit higher. Maybe they fight for 4th. But right now, you can't put them any higher because you haven't seen them. One quick last thought on FC Edmonton. How concerned are they if Connor James were to ever go down? I know they have a 19-year-old in Darlington, Murasawanwa. Hopefully I got that right, Darlington. And then Joey Holiday, they just signed as a developmental 16-year-old kid who we both love, but is only 16 and needs time to grow, and certainly not a candidate probably to see any time unless an emergency. But how concerned should they be about the health of Connor James throughout the year?
Right now, Connor James is experienced. He's balanced in every kind of facet of being a goalkeeper. He's very well rounded. Where he does a lot of things in that position very, very well. What I will say about Darlington is Darlington is the best pure shot stopper that's ever played for FC Edmonton. His reaction time, his saves that he makes are just, honestly, it blows you away in training. We brought him into training last year quite a bit. Started off in the academy years ago. After the first year, though, he went off to the Whitecaps. Needed to go there to keep improving. Great, did that. But his natural athleticism and again, shot ability, fantastic. There is a game he needs to work on, which would change the way that FC Edmonton could play. It would change the way that they would be able to do certain things that they want to do. So it would hurt the team in that regard, maybe. He'll get better at all that, though, given the chance. And as he develops under, one of the league's best goalkeeper coaches in Lars Hirschfeld. So a concern in that, I think it might change some of their tactics, maybe playing out in the defending third. But shot stopping, yeah. Now, where they'll lose out, though, is managing of the box. He's still a young keeper, and he's a young keeper that's not had a lot of games at a level like this. So managing the box on corners, on defending set pieces, things like this, that will be a challenge, for any young keeper, Darlington included. So yeah, Connor's key to keeping him healthy for sure. And that's not a slight on you, Darlington, because I think the world of the kid. But
yeah, no, I would agree with that. It's just, again, lack of experience. You get a little bit nervy sometimes. Pacific, talk about Pamadou Ka's squad, an up and coming team, I think, on the West Coast.
Yeah. Again,
or are they here? Are they no longer up and coming? Are they here now?
Well, I think they announced themselves in the Island Games. Very similar roster to 2019, but you have a new manager come in who's a lot like Tommy. Again, you get that passion and emotion, a real knowledge of the game with Pa, and his players want to play for him, just like Calgary players, really are out there for Tommy, like just giving everything. You saw the Pacific players do the exact same thing with Pa. And also James Merriman, I give him a shout out because I know James does a great job, and that's a great partnership.
Yeah.
So I like the team, but they're announced now. So it's no longer is it Pacific is the young team coming up. You've dropped that label now, right? You've announced yourself. You've kept the same roster. You've added a nice piece in particular, Aparicio.
Yep.
Great. But now you're not going to surprise anybody anymore. Now they know what to get from you. They're a team that wants to build out, play through the thirds, forced Canada Soccer would say. So they want to play through. They want to build out at the back. Great, but sometimes again, that led to their downfall on some occasions with turnovers because they do like to overpass in their half. That would be one thing that they need to now resolve, and they'll do that as they mature as young players. Love their starting 11. I had them ranked third coming in, and really, well, not really. They're third for me strictly because I just find that the other two rosters are just ahead. They're deeper and ahead. So simple as that for me. But the third because they've got continuity. They've probably been training for a long time. They have their facility there. I know they kept their players extended, I think right until the end of December almost, as their contracts would go to that in this league. So, they're going to have that continuity. So they'll come in knowing each other. There's not a chemistry issue there. And now you've got a manager with a real season to plan for and build around. And that's an X factor for them is Pa for me, is their X factor. But for a player X factor, I guess you have to go Bustos, okay. Just because he's so important to what they do. And yeah, I'll go with him. And he's made a big claim. He wants to be the best player in the league, and he keeps claiming it. So it's time to be the best player in the league.
Put up or shut up.
Yeah.
For me, I love what they've built, and I'm kind of with you. Like this is, we're no longer in the point where they're the young team who are building for the future. I think the future is starting to be now. We need to see some results from this team. So I love the young core. I love the continuity. And again, my question is, can they take that next step? Can everybody improve just that little bit and, start knocking on the door with Forge and with Cavalry to bug the big guys in the league? For me, the X factors, maybe a little bit off the board here, is the goalkeepers, Callum Irving and Nolan Worth. They're fine. But I think for this team to be in that top tier, they need to be good. They can't just be fine.
Yeah.
I don't know if fine is going to be good enough, especially when you get into the later stages of the season or into a playoff game. You want solid, consistent goalkeeping, and so challenge those guys to step up and be a big part of that team. And I also have them third. I think there's been a couple signings the last little while with Cavalry and Forge again that's created some separation.
Yeah.
But I mean, going into the off season and seeing the departures and how many people stayed at Pacific, I had them right with those two, at least for a little bit before the other two started signing some guys. So I have them as third, and I think they're going to be fun to watch. I'm really looking forward to seeing Pacific on the pitch. So
question for me is still the back line, Greyson.
Yeah.
It's still, that's always going to be the question for me. I'm not saying the bad players, they're all good players, but that when you look at the roster as a whole, and if you're trying to find, is there a piece of that lineup that might hold them back? That's where I see it is. Their midfield three is because anybody's. When you look at Aparicio, Jamar Dixon, and Baldissimo, you would take that on any team and be happy with that. A bit of bite, bit of nastiness, and they can all play football. They all fill in, can pass a ball. They just, I like it. They're fit physically. They're fit. Midfield matches up really nicely with Cavalry's. When you look at that physical nature of the game and what you bring.
So there you go. Yeah. That's our Canadian Premier League preview. The games start on the 26th of Saturday. I think this is going to come out on the Friday, so we should give you a day to absorb our preview. The games on the first weekend here, you have FC Edmonton, Atletico Ottawa, which I think is going to be just intriguing because one of these teams is going to get a good start to the season, and hopefully they can build it. That's 2:00 Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the Saturday. And then we get Pacific Halifax. We get the coast-to-coast derby, which I think will also be really interesting because these are, the two teams that joined the top two in the playoffs last season. And then we'll get Forge and Valor on Sunday, as well as Cavalry and the New Look York United squad. So, yeah, there you go. A full opening weekend. And remember, it's going to be double match weeks for the first month. So a lot of rest. A lot of rotation, not a lot of rest, a lot of rotation, a lot of matches. Really interesting. And man, JP, it's back. Football's back, baby, in this country.
I love it.
Exciting.
I love it. And our domestic league is back. I mean, I'm buzzing. I'm absolutely buzzing for this season. I'm not going to get slaughtered on the daily, so it's been nice just to watch games and not have to worry about Twitter and things like this. As a fan, love it.
You don't have me bugging you for comments every day. Training. That'll be nice.
Yeah, I know. I wish them all well. Listen, the manager's done a great job with their rosters. It's exciting. I think the talent level has risen this year for everybody across the board. I wish them all well. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, hopefully the fans as well get excited. I know it's going to be tough to not be there in the bubble, and for some venues, maybe not everyone in right away. But I know the fans are excited. The hardcores are just stoked. And I hope they all just really appreciate the season after what we've been through in the last, 16 to 18 months here. It's been tough times. So hopefully everybody can just get together safely and, have a couple pints, watch some football, and just enjoy the game across the country again. So he is Jeff_Paulus on Twitter. I am at Greyson Knutson. At the Cynical Challenge 1 is the handle. Search the Cynical Challenge on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all your favorite catchers. JP, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the Canadian Premier League, and we'll chat soon.
Enjoy the games.